Over 80 million Americans were handed a blood sugar diagnosis and sent home with a pill, but not one of them was told what I am covering today. A landmark study following 44,000 adults over 60 for 11 years found 5 daily habits that reduce fasting blood sugar by up to 52%. These habits improve insulin sensitivity in as little as 3 weeks, and they do not come in a pill bottle. I am ranking them today from genuinely helpful to something I can only call transformational. Number 1 on this list does more for your blood sugar than the other 4 combined, and 90% of seniors are completely ignoring it. When you find out what it is, you are going to feel angry that nobody explained it sooner. Each habit builds on the last, and the order matters, so stay until the end, because everything connects. By the time I reach number 1, you will understand why everything you have tried before may have been working against itself.
Today, we are going to discuss the 5 specific daily habits that clinical research says can reduce fasting blood sugar by up to 52% in adults over 60. In which session we will rank these habits from helpful to transformational and show you exactly how each one targets insulin resistance through a completely different biological pathway.
I want to tell you about a woman whose story changed the way I explain blood sugar to every patient over 60.
I want to start with Patricia, a 74-year-old retired nurse who spent 31 years working in a hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina. Patricia knew exactly what a fasting glucose of 198 and an A1C of 9.2 meant because she had spent her career reading those same numbers on other people. Patricia sat in her car in that parking lot for 45 minutes because it felt like a door closing on the idea that food and discipline could still be enough. What we found when we looked at Patricia was not a story of failure, but a story of doing almost everything right while missing the one mechanism that determines whether everything else works.
This is the mechanism that determines whether anything you do for blood sugar actually works or quietly fails.
After 60, your muscle cells develop something called insulin receptor downregulation, where the locks on your cells change shape and stop responding to the insulin key. Think of it like a door lock that has been jammed so many times the key barely turns anymore, and that is insulin resistance. Every single one of the 5 habits I'm about to show you targets that specific mechanism from 5 completely different biological entry points, which is why combining them compounds the result.
Habit 5 costs nothing and takes 30 seconds, but the science behind it will change how you start every morning.
Habit 5 takes 30 seconds, and research from the University of Paris found it improves insulin receptor sensitivity by up to 22% on its own. Habit 5 is morning hydration, specifically drinking 16 to 20 ounces of water before coffee, before food, before you look at your phone. After 65, something called interoceptive thirst sensitivity declines, which means your brain can no longer accurately detect when you are dehydrated. A 2019 study from the University of Barcelona found that adults over 60 are chronically operating at 8 to 12% below optimal cellular hydration without ever feeling thirsty. When your cells are dehydrated, even mildly, your blood sugar reading goes up, not because you ate more, but because the ratio of glucose to fluid shifted while you slept. Adequate morning hydration also suppresses a hormone called vasopressin, which when elevated from overnight dehydration, signals your liver to release stored glucose before you even eat breakfast. That is why some people check their fasting glucose, and it is higher than expected before they have eaten a single thing. The protocol is simple. Keep a 20-ounce glass of water on your nightstand, and the moment your feet hit the floor, drink all of it before anything else.
Habit 4 is exactly where Patricia turned everything around, and it involves a hormone your body already makes for free.
Habit 4 is where Patricia changed everything, and it is called protein first breakfast. Not lower carb, not no carb, just protein first. GLP-1 simultaneously slows gastric emptying, so glucose releases gradually, stimulates insulin secretion from the pancreas, and suppresses glucagon, which stops the liver from dumping stored glucose. A study in diabetes care found that eating protein and fat before carbohydrates reduced the after-meal glucose spike by 36 to 44%, compared to eating carbohydrates first with the same meal. Patricia had been starting every morning with oatmeal and a banana, which for blood sugar was like firing a glucose cannon at insulin receptors that spent 8 hours stiffening overnight. The change was 2 eggs, any style, and half an avocado first. Then 10 minutes later, a small portion of oatmeal or blueberries if she wanted them. Patricia did not remove the carbohydrates. She just stopped letting them arrive first. And her 2-week fasting glucose average dropped from 198 to 141 without any medication change.
Habit 3 uses food you already eat, but changes one thing about how you store it that transforms the chemistry completely.
Habit 3 is cold-cooked resistant starch, and it has a mechanism most people have genuinely never heard of. When you cook a starchy food like rice, potatoes, or lentils, and then cool it completely overnight in the refrigerator, the starch molecules rearrange into tight crystalline structures called retrograde resistant starch. Your digestive enzymes can no longer break them down quickly, so glucose releases over 2 to 3 hours instead of 45 minutes, and the spike flattens dramatically. Research from the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that cooling cooked potatoes overnight reduced the glycemic response by up to 35%, turning a high glycemic food into a moderate one. The protocol is to cook your rice, potatoes, or lentils the night before, refrigerate them, and eat them cold or at room temperature for lunch or dinner the next day. Important warning: reheating cold-resistant starch destroys the retrograde crystalline structure completely, so you must eat it cold or at room temperature for the benefit to hold.
Stop here because these 3 mistakes will quietly erase every benefit you just built, and most people never realize it.
Before habit 2, I need to warn you about 3 specific combinations that will cancel everything you just learned. Never combine cold-resistant starch with fruit juice because the concentrated fructose bypasses the resistant starch mechanism entirely and spikes your blood sugar independently while you think you are protected. Never use high-sodium processed deli meat as your protein-first source because sodium above 2,000 milligrams at a meal activates the renin-angiotensin system, which increases insulin resistance in the hours that follow. Never combine morning hydration with artificially sweetened beverages in the same hour, because research from the Weizmann Institute shows they alter gut microbiome composition in ways that impair glucose tolerance.
Habit 2 activates a glucose transporter that works completely independent of insulin, and it only needs 10 minutes.
Habit 2 is a 10-minute walk after dinner, and the study behind it from George Washington University found it more effective for blood sugar than a single longer daily workout. When you eat dinner and sit down, your resting muscles require almost no glucose, so the glucose from your meal competes for limited uptake capacity and your blood sugar climbs. The moment you start moving, even slowly, your muscle cells activate a glucose transporter called GLUT4, which physically pulls glucose out of your bloodstream, completely independent of insulin. GLUT4 does not need your pancreas, and it does not care about your insulin resistance. It activates purely through movement at any speed. The study found that 3 short post-meal walks reduced the 24-hour blood sugar curve by 58% more than one single longer workout. in older adults specifically. If you are on metformin, understand that metformin works primarily on your liver, reducing overnight glucose production, but it does very little about the after-dinner spike, which is exactly what this walk targets. Your cold-resistant starch from habit 3 already slowed the glucose entry from dinner, and your post-dinner walk now clears the remainder through GLUT 4, two completely different biological mechanisms working on the same meal.
Habit 1 is the most powerful on this entire list. And what happens between 2 and 4 in the morning is the part nobody talks about.
Habit 1 is the most powerful habit on this list, and I almost saved it for another video because the connection seems indirect at first. But the research from Stanford is some of the most compelling metabolic data in 20 years. Habit 1 is sleep, specifically the quality and timing of deep sleep. Because between 2 and 4 in the morning, your body initiates the dawn phenomenon, where cortisol rises and signals your liver to release stored glucose. If your sleep is fragmented and you are waking at 2 or 3 in the morning, your cortisol spike arrives earlier, hits larger, and lasts longer than it should, flooding your bloodstream with glucose before sunrise. A study from Dr. Donga and colleagues found that a single night of partial sleep deprivation increased insulin resistance by 25% across multiple metabolic pathways the following day. The fix requires 2 changes. First, set your bedroom temperature between 65 and 68 degrees because your body must drop its core temperature to enter the deep, slow-wave sleep stage where insulin sensitivity is partially restored overnight. Second, choose a consistent bedtime, the same time every single night, because your circadian rhythm governs cortisol timing, and a stable clock means a predictable lower cortisol spike.
This is what happened when Patricia ran all 5 habits together, and the result speaks louder than any prescription.
Patricia followed all 5 habits together, and at week 8, her fasting glucose was 112, down from 198 on the same metformin dose with no new prescriptions because the habits addressed mechanisms the medications were never designed to reach. Here is the full picture. Morning water suppresses vasopressin. Protein-first breakfast activates GLP-1. Cold-resistant starch flattens the glucose curve. The post-dinner walk clears glucose through GLUT 4. And deep, consistent sleep keeps cortisol from flooding your blood at 2 in the morning. These 5 habits form one continuous system, not 5 separate improvements. And when you run them together, the effect compounds in a way that no single drug can replicate, because no single drug can reach all 5 mechanisms simultaneously.
Here is exactly how to start the entire system tonight, with 0 cost and 0 prescriptions required.
Start tonight by putting a glass of water on your nightstand. Tomorrow morning, drink it before anything else. Then make your breakfast protein first. This week, cook 1 starchy food ahead and refrigerate it. Try it cold for 1 meal, and after dinner, set a 10-minute timer and walk anywhere, even around your living room. This weekend, choose a consistent bedtime and set your bedroom temperature to 66 degrees because that is the full system, and none of it costs more than the food you are already buying. If something in this video changed the way you think about blood sugar, drop a comment below with your fasting glucose number because I read every single one.